The year is 2025, Apple just dropped the Vision Pro, AI can draft entire product flows in Figma, and designers on Slack have exactly zero patience for product managers who just want it to pop. Are you the PM designer's dodge in the hallway, or the one they request on every single project? Stick around, because in the next few minutes, I'll hand you the 3-step playbook that will turn you into your UX team's favorite human and make shipping delightful products stupid simple.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
What's up, everyone? I'm Garrett Risco, a product manager, and welcome to the channel Risky Business, where I teach you what tactics product managers use behind the scenes to build the best products out there. If that's your vibe, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's get started. So to be that designer-friendly product manager, you want to do 3 things. You want to sit down and shut up, you want to speak fluent design, and you want to co-create early and often. Let me give you an example. It's spring 2020 with COVID in full swing. Cities all over Europe are tentatively trying to emerge from lockdowns. Despite social distancing and having to avoid public transportation, people are looking for easy ways to get into grocery stores, get some exercise in, and get out of their house so they don't have to hear their nan complain about Boris Johnson's blowout while they doom scroll about toilet paper shortages. Europeans were able to scratch that itch in droves by grabbing an electric bike for every member of the family, causing the biggest surge in electric bike sales the market had seen to date. Months prior to this COVID-driven electric bike surge, the product team at the Dutch-based electric bike company VanMoof predicted this meteoric demand of electric bikes and knew it was time to scale. Because of their early user predictions, the product team did 3 critical things at the same time. 1, they released their S3 and X3 bike models at a significantly cheaper price point with all new features. 2, they created a channel to sell direct to consumer so they could own design to production to sales to after service, and they put the right people in place to secure funding to scale their business. 3, successfully secured $13.5 million in funding in May 2020. Well, their predictions paid off, with the UK government creating a £2 billion package to incentivize cycling and walking. VanMoof saw their profits skyrocket from their predicted $40 million to $120 million that year, and they subsequently secured 2 more rounds of funding totaling $168 million. So how did the product teams at VanMoof and many other companies predict what their customers want ahead of big market trends? Because the Dutch team saw lockdown life coming. They launched their S3 and X3 at a lower price, and they tripled the revenue overnight. What most people missed is this: they exercise product shielded design. There's no panic stand-ups, no can you redo that flow by 4 p.m. Friday, none of that nonsense. The UX researchers had time to research the users, build persona maps, and correctly predict trending pain points way in advance of lockdowns, so they knew exactly what customers would need if a lockdown was in full swing. So how do you foster this first principled environment? The first and most important thing you can do with your design team is sit down and shut up. Of course, I'm only half serious. You do need to voice your opinion and evaluate the amazing research and design work your team is doing to give the best experience to your users. But that's secondary to the most important thing you can do, which is really to block and tackle for your design team so they can do the best job possible. If any designers are watching this video, raise your hand if you've heard a product manager say, "Oh, but can you move the button to the left instead of the right? It just makes more sense." Or the infamous, "Can we make this design pop more?" Your job as a product manager is to manage the risks of shipping a product. So you don't want to roll the dice on if your customers will love your product when it does ship.
I also like to live dangerously.
So you as a PM own 2 of the 4 product risks, while the remaining 2 are owned by your respective design and engineering teams. Of the 4 product risks, there's the value risk, the business risk, the feasibility risk, and the usability risk. You own the value risk, or are we delivering something that your customers truly need and will invest time, money, effort into? And you own the business risk, or are we building something that makes us money and grows our user base or increases our engagement? The feasibility risk is owned by the engineering team. It's all about delivering the product with high quality in the time that we have, with the team available. I covered this in a previous video, which I'll link down below. The last risk is the usability risk, which is all about making sure we're building a product that our end users can naturally discover, navigate, and interact with in a frictionless way. Or are we building the right thing for our users? This usability risk is the responsibility of the design team. They can best address this risk if you give them time to do their best work. And that means not asking for multiple deliverables due by the end of the day or the week. Your job is to support them. Your job is to knock down obstacles, give them space to do their best work. Otherwise, really, you're gambling that your end users will understand how to use your product. So does that mean you just sit there and quietly listen in all meetings? No, of course not. You shouldn't be the silent, mysterious guiding hand and hope your product manifests into something amazing. but you should spend more of your time listening than talking. Your secondary priority as a product manager should be all about listening to insights from your design teams so that you can make the best product decisions possible, whether it's during a voice of customer research roll-up, listening to competitive product insights from your design team, or reviewing a new paper prototype from your UI designers. If you do this, you'll be the product manager that hits differently than what UX teams are used to. So you're probably wondering, okay, all this sitting back and listening is great, but what are the right questions to ask your design team? Your goal in listening is to get informed on the process so you can probe one level deeper on the research that was done. So for example, one group of questions I typically ask is about design choices, like for the inventory page of our coffee storefront, what research was done to use infinite scroll instead of pagination? Or what research led us to using a slider instead of a numerical input for the number of days a user wants to stay in our bed and breakfast pop-up? The goal is to probe a level deeper into what the design driver was. So I might ask questions on, was there a voice of customer session that explained the complexity of a previous mockup? Was A/B testing done to inform this decision? Or is there a competitive product that's already designed in a way that our users are already comfortable with? Another set of questions I ask is about research logistics. I would ask questions around, do we have enough time, people, expertise, and willing victims and users to gather the information we need to make the best product? The goal here is to set your team up with enough time and resources to do the job, while also time boxing the work done and setting an expectation for the team. My product manager friend recommends using the time-tested strategy of avoiding things like declaring, I think we should do X, and instead phrase your feedback as a question that lead them to think the way you're thinking. So for example, for your exotic online coffee roastery, you wouldn't say, this workflow of interrupting their coffee checkout experience with a rewards pop-up makes no sense. This will annoy customers into skipping checkout entirely. You would instead say, how do you think end customers would like our coffee checkout experience? You want to ask these questions to make sure the usability risk is being managed by the team and that they feel ownership. And you want to do this without micromanaging your UX team. So during this question and answer process, I also use this opportunity to give the team business justifications on why the ask is important. So remember to take time to listen and ask valuable questions, give time back to your UX team to get their best work done, and avoid making danger your middle name by addressing usability risks early in the process. So some practical takeaways to block and tackle for your team. 1, I usually create a design SLA. My teams get 48-hour minimum feedback cycles. I'm not dropping those 4 p.m. Friday drive-bys. 2, I publish a risk matrix or RACI. It's a one-pager, 4 risks. The owners are clearly labeled, who needs to be responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And 3, I gatekeep distractions. If a stakeholder wants that one tiny tweak, that's cool, I'll route it into the next discovery sprint.
You shall not pass!
So if you're committed to shielding your designers this sprint, drop a lock emoji down in the comments. Okay, so to ask the right questions and speak the same language as your UX team, you should know what their design process is. Reid Hoffman famously said, if you're not embarrassed by your product, you shipped it too late. Of course, he didn't mean to blindly ship your product early and hope for the best. What he was trying to get at is you shouldn't wait to deliver unto your customers the perfect golden goose product after years of development, and instead you should get your product into your customers' hands early and often, so you can test product fit and iterate rapidly. Nothing is worse than spending multiple quarters building something your customers don't want. The design process is specifically made to prevent this by asking questions, testing with users, and iterating rapidly. One framework your UX team will use is called double diamond design. The diamond shape in double diamond design is used to represent gathering many opinions without prejudging any of them yet, then rigorously winnowing them down to just the few best options. And this is broken down into 2 phases. The first is all about selecting the best pain points and use cases you want to solve for the end user. And the second phase is all about providing the best product design screens to address those use cases. And then the first diamond is actually broken into 2 steps, specifically discover and define. In the discover step, your UX researcher's job is to understand the problem, identify the real pain points of your end users, and create use cases for your product. This is done through a number of methods, including generative research, immersion, questionnaires, interviews, self-documentation meetings, and user experience observations. If you want to see a real-world example or a tutorial of a generative research study, comment down below. The second step is defining exactly which of those previous use cases and pain points you want to address. Your team will do this by interpreting their findings, grouping similar problems together, maybe identifying some themes, ranking the importance of each pain point, and designing use cases to address each of them. The outcome of this should be something like an experience outcome or user story, which is written down that anyone can read and understand. An example of a well-written user story follows the format of as a, I want, so that. So like an example would be, as an end user concerned about indoor air quality, I want to see what I have been breathing in the past day so that I can make changes to my home's air cleanliness and improve my air quality. Once you have these clearly identified, scoped, and ranked use cases, your team will move on to the second diamond, specifically developing and delivering final mockups. For the develop phase, your visual designers will take over. They'll develop and propose multiple low-fidelity mockups from the previously selected use cases. These visually designs are typically experimental rough sketches showing a number of ways the product could look. A lot of work goes into brainstorming solutions and looking at competitor products to see other ways it's been solved, usually also pulling from your company's design system for building blocks, or maybe even looking at top-tier products outside your market for design inspiration. So once a slew of low-fidelity mockups are created, your visual design team will move on to the last step, which is deliver. This includes putting the low-fidelity mockups in front of subject matter experts to pick the best design and then iterate on it. They'll typically create a pixel-perfect mockup out of this phase, which will be used as the final design and will be provided to your engineering team. The goal of this last step is to refine down all the possible mockup solutions down to just one and to develop it to be as high fidelity as possible. Skipping this step can lead to a flop of a product, potentially stalling out or even killing your product. A perfect example of this is Tesla's steering yoke design for their Plaid Model S. If you haven't seen Tesla's reimagining of the steering wheel on their Model S Plaid, at first glance, the yoke design looks fantastic, giving a clear sightline of the road. It's streamlined, it's truly different, and it lets drivers feel like they're driving an F1 performance vehicle, which is where its yoke design came from. But as reviewers started to get their hands, quite literally, on this new design, negative review after negative review came out. Reviewers couldn't quite put their finger, yes pun intended, on why it was bad, but they knew it felt weird to drive. It wasn't usable and it felt like an experiment in form over function. Well, as it turns out, their gut feeling was correct. As some internet UX researchers pointed out, in an F1 vehicle, the wheel is designed for much smaller and higher precision movements and usually can only be turned about 200 to 300 degrees, never having to do a full hand-over-hand motion. Whereas on traditional cars, the full range of motion of a normal steering wheel is about 900 degrees. That means you have about 2.5 hand-over-hands. So with a circular steering wheel, you always have something to grab onto when doing a hand-over-hand. But with a steering wheel yoke, the Tesla product and design team, they neglected to solve for this hand-over-hand problem, instead giving us this goofy crisscross applesauce yoke move that you see on the Plaid. For Tesla, they're making enough money to potentially float this problem and maybe recall cars or fix it in the next model, but for many startups, this could be the death of your product, especially one as expensive as a car. So how do you head this problem off at the pass and not repeat a Tesla product team goof up? So this might seem obvious, but the best way to build a stellar product is to get it in front of customers early and often. A lot of product managers are very hesitant to do this because they're afraid of negative feedback. They think negative feedback is a failure of the product, their team, and maybe ultimately a failure of their vision of the product. Negative feedback is not a failure of the product, the team, or the vision of the product. It's critically important to get over that fear of failure and to get your product in front of customers often, as the best products are forged in fire. They're used by many customers and they're iterated on. It's critical to bring your UX team into many customer conversations as early as possible so they understand customer needs and pain points and their reaction to your product. Let me give you a real example. Let's talk about Airbnb's famous 11-star customer experience exercise. Back in the early Airbnb days, founders Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia realized they needed to deeply understand what their guests truly wanted. Rather than guessing, they invited real Airbnb hosts and guests into imaginative, iterative UX sessions. They asked them what would make a 5-star stay. People said the basics, clean sheets and easy check-in. Then the founders pushed a little bit further. They said, how about a 6-star stay? Users said, maybe the host greets me in person, a welcome basket, maybe fresh fruit in the kitchen. They didn't stop there. They kept pushing 7-star, 8-star, eventually reaching an absolutely luxurious 11-star experience. Think the director of NASA greeting you personally on the moon level crazy. Sure, it's over the top, but here's why it matters. By iterating early and often with real users, Airbnb uncovered simple yet powerful ideas that became core features, like personalized welcome notes, local experience recommendations, and even the Airbnb Experiences product line. Today, Airbnb is a travel powerhouse with millions of loyal users worldwide. That's the power of relentless early co-creation and usability testing with users. A great way to test early and often is with usability testing, and sometimes a PM will join and assist the UX team here. If you happen to get the call to help, here's how you'd conduct one. Typically, these interview sessions are structured so that you have 2 or 3 people on your team interviewing the end user, where one person has the role of asking questions, another has the role of facilitating any demos or mockups the end user will see, and the last person will be a dedicated note taker. This type of usability study is very valuable to catch explicit challenges your participants comment on, like, so am I supposed to click this checkout button to see my car? Or I'm not sure what happened here. Was the next page supposed to load? Usability studies also capture end users' implicit pain points. Like when you see them moving the mouse often over like a price label and they thought it would have a hover over, or they're struggling to figure out what the next step is in a confusing 5-step wizard. Another process I bring my UX team into is engineering meetings, such as scoping or design meetings. I usually set expectations by telling them they could be a fly on the wall. It's really awesome when a UX person joins these meetings because they will often catch things we didn't even think of. I can't count the number of times where engineering will say something like, well, if we could just reduce risk by cutting out this design aspect, like removing the custom time picker, then we could deliver so much quicker. And the UX designer will jump in and let everyone know that, hey, this is how it's going to impact the user experience in ways we didn't really think about. So including your UX team throughout the product process is a valued asset, and also to like envision new features, to spot gotchas, and to piece together the future product holistically. Good designers naturally understand Gestalt, that objects are more than the sum of their parts. So as LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman said, if you're not embarrassed by your V1, you ship too late. And I would add to that, if you launched without UX, you shipped V1 blindfolded. Let's not ship blindfolded. So if you want to get to a place where you're like the product team at VanMoof, where it looks like you're predicting problems and trends before they even happen, it's important you give your UX team the space and time they need to build the best thing. It's important you understand the design process so you can be empathetic and ask intelligent questions, and bring that UX team in early and often to get hands-on with the customer, as rarely does the product we dream up end up being the thing that we ship. Reid Hoffman also said, as a product manager, you need to be a predictive anthropologist. You need to predict people's wants in the future and deliver it to them before they even get there. So with that, you can take away 3 strategies on how to be the PM your UX team loves. If you have questions or need help, let me know. So in product YouTube fashion, make sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and comment down below with any questions you want me to answer. Hit the bell to follow and get notified of new content where I break down industry expertise, PM best practices, day-to-day ways to excel in the role, and some behind-the-scenes secrets on how the top companies make the best products. Stay tuned for another episode. Thanks so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.